The goats scattered when they saw him, but the little cub didn't chase them. Instead, he tried to play. The morning sunlight spilled across the farmyard, painting the barn roof gold and glinting off the dew-covered grass. Farmer Harris had stepped out with his usual cup of coffee, leaning against the wooden fence as his goats began their morning grazing. The air smelled sweet with hay and the faint tang of goat musk, and the farm seemed peaceful, quiet, the kind of morning where nothing ever went wrong. Then he saw movement at the edge of the orchard, where the tree line met the pasture. A small brown blur skittered through the grass, low and cautious at first, then bounding forward with clumsy curiosity. Harris squinted. What in the? The blur became clear, a little brown bear cub, no bigger than a large dog, ears twitching, eyes bright and round. It paused at the border of the pasture, sniffing the air, nostrils flaring. Its head turned this way and that, and then, decisively, it trotted toward the goats. The herd reacted immediately. Goats bleated sharply, some backing up, some leaping in place. The youngest kids scattered in panic, hooves clattering across the dirt. One adult goat slammed into the wooden fence with a thump, rattling boards. The cub stopped mid-step, tilted its head, and squeaked softly. It didn't charge. It didn't growl. It simply stared, curious and playful, watching the chaos it had caused. Harris froze, coffee halfway to his mouth. His heart hammered in his chest. He had seen bears before in the hills bordering his farm, but never one this small, never this bold. And never in the pasture with his goats. He stepped back, hand gripping the fence, unsure whether to yell, scare the cub, or just stay perfectly still. The cub took a tentative step forward, paw lifted like it was trying to beckon the goats to play. One goat, a speckled brown and white doe, froze in mid-stride, eyeing the cub warily. The cub squeaked again, hopping slightly, tail wagging like a dog's. Harris exhaled slowly. The cub wasn't aggressive. Not yet. Not at all. But the goats didn't understand. The herd bolted in small clusters, some running toward the barn, others scattering toward the fence line. The cub tumbled over a small rock, rolled onto its back for a moment, then scrambled up, blinking as if surprised by its own clumsiness. Harris whispered to himself, "Easy, easy now, little guy. Just calm." The cub's eyes followed the adult doe, stepping lightly, padding across the grass, still curious but not frightening. It pawed at a clump of dirt, sniffed the air again, and then bounced toward the nearest kid goat. The kid froze, wide-eyed, trembling. The cub squeaked, nudging the kid gently with its nose. The farmyard erupted again in startled bleats. Harris raised a hand, calling out to the goats in a low, firm tone. Hey, settle down. Leave him be." The cub jumped back, startled by the loud human voice. But only for a moment. It tilted its head, blinked at Harris, then scampered forward again, more cautiously this time. It pawed at a patch of grass near the fence, then at a small bucket of feed. Its curiosity was unstoppable. Harris realized the cub wasn't trying to harm the goats. It was trying to play. A thrill of awe ran through him, tempered with fear. Bears were unpredictable, even cubs. One wrong move, one startled jump, and someone could get hurt. The cub pawed at the air near a goat again, squeaking, nudging it gently. The kid goat squealed and bolted toward the barn. The mother doe froze, tail high, muscles tensed. The cub squeaked again and hopped in place, tail wagging like it expected the goat to chase it back. Harris's pulse raced. He raised his hands slowly, keeping his voice soft. "Little guy, easy. You don't want trouble." The cub blinked at him. Then, as if understanding, it crouched low, circling the kid goat gently, sniffing and pawing softly. It never hit, never charged, only nudged. The goat froze, uncertain. The other goats, watching from a distance, bleated nervously, their stance wary. But Harris noticed something remarkable: no one had been injured yet. The cub's curiosity was innocent, natural, almost endearing. Harris leaned against the fence, feeling both relief and wonder. This wasn't aggression. This was a wild cub trying to make friends in the only way it knew how, through play. A sudden noise, the clatter of a bucket knocked over, made the cub leap back, tumbling on its side again. Harris held his breath. The doe took a cautious step forward. The cub scrambled to its paws, shook its head, then squeaked, hopping lightly on all fours. It paused, then slowly approached the kid goat again, sniffing the air. Harris felt a warmth in his chest. This was a scene of rare innocence, fleeting and fragile. But then, a distant bark echoed from the road. A dog had awakened, likely from a nearby farm. The cub froze, ears pinned back. The kid goat bolted again, bleating. The cub tumbled forward in its surprise. Harris's stomach dropped. One false move now could send the cub panicking, or the goat scattering into harm's way. He stepped forward cautiously, voice calm but firm. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe. You just want to play, right?" The cub tilted its head, then squeaked softly, pawing again at the nearest kid goat. Harris exhaled slowly, realizing he was witnessing the rarest form of trust, wild curiosity meeting domestic caution. The cub had chosen to stay, not out of fear, not out of hunger, but out of playful curiosity. Harris knew then that the next moments would decide the day. The cub seems friendly, playful even, but the herd is panicking. If you were the farmer, would you try to intervene or let nature take its course? The morning sun climbed higher, glinting off the barn roof and turning dewdrops into miniature prisms. Harris stayed rooted behind the fence, eyes locked on the little bear cub as it hopped and pawed among the goats. The herd was still unsettled. Some goats huddled near the barn wall, tails high, muscles taut with nervous energy. Others bolted back toward the fence line, skidding on loose dirt. The kid goat the cub had first approached stared wide-eyed at the small brown intruder, ears flicking nervously. The cub, undeterred, squeaked and bounded forward again. Its movements were playful but clumsy, a series of hops and tumbles. It nudged the kid goat lightly with its nose, then stepped back, as if inviting it to chase. The goat froze, bleating softly, uncertainty etched into every muscle. Harris exhaled slowly. This was exactly what he had feared. The cub's playful curiosity could easily turn into chaos. He needed a plan before someone got hurt. He glanced around the farmyard, noticing how the cub had wandered closer to the feed buckets. One paw pressed against a tin container, tipping it slightly, spilling oats onto the dirt. The cub squeaked in surprise and tried to paw the spillage back into the bucket. Harris felt a mixture of awe and panic. The cub's intelligence was remarkable, but so was its unpredictability. From the distance, a faint rustle in the orchard caught his attention. Another set of eyes, smaller, half hidden behind the apple trees, watched intently. Could there be another cub? Or maybe its mother nearby, just out of sight? Harris's stomach knotted. He crouched slightly, trying to make himself appear smaller, less threatening. "Easy now, easy," he murmured. His voice was low, calm, yet deliberate, carrying across the yard. The cub's head snapped toward him. Its ears twitched, tail wagging like a small pendulum. Harris could see the intelligence in its gaze. it understood, somehow, that he wasn't a threat. Then came the sudden clatter of a tin bucket tipping over completely. The sound echoed sharply, making the cub leap sideways in surprise. One goat, startled, bolted across the yard, narrowly missing a fence post. The herd erupted in bleats and frantic movements. Harris tensed. His hands gripped the wooden fence tightly, knuckles white. One wrong move, and the cub could panic. The goats could stampede. It could spiral out of control in seconds. He raised his hands slowly, stepping closer to the fence, trying to communicate calm without threatening the cub. "It's okay, just curious, that's all," he murmured. The cub paused mid-hop. Its head tilted, then it squeaked softly, bouncing in place. Slowly, it moved back toward the scattered oats, sniffing carefully. One paw nudged a small pile toward the kid goat, who remained frozen, unsure whether to run or investigate. Harris allowed himself a small exhale. So far, so good. But the tension in the yard was palpable, anyone watching could feel it in their chest. The cub pawed at the oats again, then at a small wooden plank leaning against the fence. Its claws scratched the surface, leaving tiny grooves in the wood. It squeaked and rolled on its back for a moment, legs flailing in playful abandon. Harris smiled despite his worry. There was innocence here, pure, unguarded, a glimpse into the natural curiosity of a young bear. Yet, he couldn't ignore the risk. Goats could kick, cubs could tumble, and one startled animal could turn the entire yard into a frenzy. From the farmhouse, he heard the soft creak of the door opening. A neighbor had come to investigate after hearing the commotion. Harris's heart sank. Another human presence could complicate matters. The cub froze at the sound, ears pinned back. Its tail stopped wagging, and its body stiffened. Harris motioned with his hand for the neighbor to stay back. "Quiet, don't move," he whispered urgently. The neighbor froze, hands raised. Harris turned back to the yard. The cub was still, muscles coiled, waiting for the perceived threat to pass. The kid goat blinked nervously, unsure whether to flee or stay. Then, the cub let out a soft, playful squeak and resumed its approach toward the goat. Harris watched, fascinated. The animal's behavior was gentle, exploratory, entirely non-aggressive. But then, a sudden bleat from a goat startled the cub. It jumped back, ears flicked, eyes wide. Another goat bolted, knocking over a small wooden trough. Harris's stomach churned as the cub rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a collision. He took a deep breath. This was the moment that would determine the rest of the encounter. He needed to act carefully, to guide the cub's curiosity without frightening it, and to reassure the goats simultaneously. He picked up a small stick from the ground and gently tapped it near the cub's path, not to hit, but to redirect. The cub paused, sniffed the stick, and then pawed at it, squeaking as if amused. Harris allowed himself a small, quiet chuckle. The cub's attention shifted, and slowly, it circled the kid goat again, softly pawing and nudging. The doe watched, tense, but remained stationary this time. Harris exhaled. Small victories, he reminded himself, could prevent disaster. Just as he thought the situation might stabilize, a sudden movement in the barn startled a goat. A young buck charged forward, horns aimed at the cub's playful paw. The cub squeaked in surprise, tumbling backward, its small body rolling across the dirt. Harris's heart raced. He bolted toward the fence, shouting sharply, "Stop! No one move!" The cub froze mid-roll, ears flat, tail tucked. The herd scattered again, bleating loudly, but the cub remained where it had landed, blinking up at Harris with wide, innocent eyes. For a long moment, silence fell. The cub's squeaks were soft now, almost questioning. The goats, still tense, edged closer but kept a safe distance. Harris realized this delicate balance had held, for now. He leaned against the fence, chest heaving, sweat cooling on his skin. The cub had survived the first chaotic moments unscathed. The goats had survived too. And somehow, a fragile truce existed between the two worlds, domestic and wild. Yet Harris knew it wouldn't last forever. The cub's curiosity could not be contained indefinitely. Something had to give, either the cub would tire, or the farmer would need to intervene. He glanced at the cub, then at the kid goat. Both froze, observing each other, caught in a moment that felt suspended in time. The entire yard seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see which instinct would win, play or panic. Harris felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. One wrong step, one sudden movement, and the balance could collapse. And then, a loud, clanging noise echoed from the barn door, startling the cub once more. Its squeak turned into a small yelp as it scrambled backward. The herd panicked again, and the yard erupted in chaos once more. Harris's hands shot up instinctively. Enough. Everyone stop. The cub froze, the goats halted mid-stride, and Harris realized this was only the beginning. The morning's curiosity had already escalated into tension, and he needed to act fast before the situation spiraled further. The cub's curiosity is unrelenting, but the goats are growing tense. If you were the farmer, would you let the cub continue exploring, or intervene to prevent potential chaos? Harris wiped the sweat from his brow, heart still pounding from the morning's chaos. The cub had settled temporarily near a patch of sun-warmed dirt, sitting back on its haunches, sniffing the air, as if nothing had happened. The kid goat it had first approached stood cautiously a few feet away, legs tense, eyes flicking nervously between the cub and the barn. Harris knew this moment wouldn't last long. Cubs didn't understand caution, they only knew curiosity, play, and the need to explore. He needed a way to maintain this fragile truce without frightening the cub or stressing the goats. He glanced around the yard. There were hay bales stacked along one side of the barn, just out of reach of the cub. The farmer's mind clicked into action. Perhaps he could redirect the cub's curiosity towards something safe, away from the goats, but still allow it to play. Slowly, he retrieved a small wooden crate, carefully setting it down near the cub. The bear blinked, ears twitching, and stepped toward it. Harris exhaled quietly. The cub pawed at the crate, squeaked softly, and climbed atop it, wobbling precariously before sitting back down. The kid goat took a cautious step closer, and Harris watched, heart racing. This was progress, small, tentative progress, but progress nonetheless. From the barn, the soft clatter of a pan being moved startled the cub. It leaped off the crate, landing near the patch of oats, sniffing again. Harris moved slowly, hand extended in a calming gesture. Easy, easy, no need to panic. The cub turned its head toward him, as if listening. Its small nose twitched, and it let out a tiny squeak, a sound almost like a question. Harris realized that the cub wasn't just curious about the goats. It was curious about everything, the sounds, the smells, the humans. Its world had suddenly expanded to include the farmyard, and it wanted to explore all of it. He thought back to wildlife guides he had read, about how cubs learned social boundaries by observation and gentle correction from their mothers. There was no mother here to guide it. Harris realized, with a mixture of awe and trepidation, that he would have to act as a temporary guide, not to train it, not to control it, but to protect both the cub and the farm animals. He grabbed a small bucket of feed and sprinkled some oats near the crate. The cub sniffed, pawed at the pile, and squeaked happily. The kid goat edged closer, curious now instead of scared, nudging the scattered oats gently. Harris smiled. The first real signs of peaceful interaction. Then, from the edge of the orchard, a rustle of leaves caught his attention. Another cub? He squinted, but all he saw was the wind-shifting branches. Still, the tension in his chest tightened. A sudden bleat from the barn startled both the cub and the goats. The cub spun around, eyes wide, claws digging lightly into the dirt. The doe froze, tense, muscles coiled. Harris raised his hands and called softly, "Stay calm, stay calm." The cub hesitated, sniffing the air, then hopped toward the oats again. Slowly, the doe stepped closer, sniffing the ground. The herd's tension eased slightly. Harris exhaled. It was working. The cub's curiosity could be redirected safely. But just as he allowed himself a brief moment of relief, a small human voice called from the road. "Look, a bear." Harris's head snapped toward the road. A group of children had arrived, drawn by the morning noise. One of them waved, pointing toward the cub. Others giggled excitedly. The cub froze. Its ears flattened, tail bristling slightly. The goats bolted in panic, some knocking over the wooden crate the cub had climbed earlier. Harris ran toward the road, arms outstretched. "Children, stay back. Don't approach." His voice was firm, but calm. The children stopped, hesitant, eyes wide. Harris took a deep breath and motioned for them to stay behind the fence. The cub, sensing the tension, hopped toward the center of the yard, squeaking softly but not running. The herd of goats slowly settled again, though still wary, forming a loose circle around the cub. Harris realized that this delicate balance could not last much longer without intervention. He crouched near the crate, keeping his voice soft. "Little guy, look over here. Follow me." He slowly waved toward a safe patch of grass away from the goats. The cub tilted its head, then, with a series of playful squeaks and hops, followed his lead. It moved cautiously, paws stepping lightly on the soft dirt. The goats relaxed slightly, bleating softly as the cub left their immediate space. Harris exhaled, finally feeling a hint of relief. This was progress. The cub had begun to learn boundaries, the first step toward coexistence in this chaotic, unlikely encounter. But he knew the morning wasn't over. Cubs were relentless in their curiosity, and every new sound or movement could spark panic again. The balance he had established was fragile. From the edge of the orchard, a shadow moved. Harris squinted. A larger shape? Could it be the mother bear? His pulse quickened. He had no choice now, he needed to remain vigilant. The cub sniffed the safe patch of grass, pawing gently, squeaking in a playful rhythm. Harris crouched low, ready to intervene, but careful not to frighten it. The goats watched from a distance, tails flicking, ears alert, but no longer panicked. For a fleeting moment, the farmyard was peaceful, a small victory, a balance achieved through patience and careful guidance. And then, a sudden crack of a branch snapped in the orchard. The cub froze instantly, ears flat, eyes wide. Harris's stomach sank. The next few seconds would determine whether the fragile piece held or collapsed entirely. The cub is learning boundaries, but a sudden noise in the orchard startles it. If you were the farmer, would you intervene immediately or allow the cub to respond on its own? The sudden snap of a branch echoed through the farmyard, freezing every movement. The cub's ears flattened, tail stiff, eyes wide as it crouched low, muscles coiled. The kid goat took a tentative step back, and even the doe blinked nervously, her body tense but stationary. Harris held his breath, silently counting the seconds, hoping the cub wouldn't panic. Then, slowly, the cub sniffed the air. Its nose twitched, and after a moment of hesitation, it hopped a few steps closer to the goat. Harris exhaled quietly, relieved. The fear had passed, replaced once again by curiosity. The kid goat blinked, sensing no immediate danger, and stepped forward as well. The cub squeaked softly, pawing the dirt playfully. For the first time, the goat seemed willing to accept the cub's presence. Harris smiled, realizing what was unfolding before him, a rare, gentle interaction between wild and domestic animals. The cub wasn't threatening, it was inquisitive, playful, and surprisingly careful around creatures much larger than itself. The goats, in turn, were learning to tolerate the cub, recognizing that its movements were not hostile. The morning sun warmed the yard, casting long shadows across the dirt and hay. Dust motes floated lazily in the light, sparkling like tiny stars. Harris crouched near the fence, arms resting on the wooden rails, watching with a mix of wonder and anxiety. He knew that this fragile balance could change in an instant, but for now, the scene was almost peaceful. The cub pawed at a small pile of hay, rolling it over and squeaking in delight. The kid goat followed cautiously, sniffing and nudging the hay, imitating the cub's movements. Harris laughed softly, unable to hide his amusement. It was as if the cub had invited the goat to play a game, and surprisingly, the goat had accepted. From the orchard's edge, Harris noticed movement again. A shadow shifted among the trees, perhaps another cub, or even the mother watching from a safe distance. He tensed, ready to step in, but the figure remained still, almost as if observing without interfering. The cub hopped onto a sun-warmed rock, squeaking at the kid goat, who stepped closer, still hesitant but intrigued. They circled each other, pawing and nudging, the tension from earlier replaced by cautious interaction. Harris felt a lump in his throat. He had never imagined witnessing such a gentle connection between wild and domestic animals. The rest of the herd watched from a distance, their bodies relaxed but alert. Harris realized that even among the goats, a sense of understanding was forming. They were not scared anymore, they were curious, cautious, and perhaps even respectful. Then, a sudden breeze rustled the orchard leaves, carrying with it the faint scent of berries and wildflowers. The cub froze, sniffing the air, ears perked. Harris noticed the subtle change in the cub's posture, its playful energy was balanced by heightened awareness. It was learning quickly, guided by instinct and its interactions with the goats. Harris stepped closer, his movements slow and deliberate. He wanted to reinforce calm, not impose authority. "Good, easy, that's it," he murmured, voice low and soothing. The cub blinked at him, almost as if understanding, and returned to nudging the kid goat. Time seemed to stretch in the warm morning light. Dust motes twirled, birds called from the trees, and the cub and kid goat continued their tentative game. Harris couldn't help but marvel at the patience and intelligence of the young bear. It was playful, yes, but never reckless. Its curiosity was tempered by caution, and its interactions with the goats were almost gentle. Suddenly, a goat bleated loudly from the far side of the yard, startling the cub. Its small body tensed, ears flat, tail flicking nervously. Harris held his breath, expecting chaos. But the cub paused, blinked, and then stepped forward again, squeaking softly, testing the goat's reaction. The goat, sensing no real threat, relaxed and stepped closer. Harris exhaled slowly, feeling a wave of relief. This was a breakthrough. The cub had learned, in a short time, how to interact without causing panic. The goats, too, were adapting, understanding that this small intruder meant no harm. From the orchard, the shadow moved again, slightly closer this time. Harris's pulse quickened. Could it be the mother bear? He stayed still, watching as the cub paused mid-play, sniffing the air. A large shape emerged from the trees, a female bear, massive and imposing, yet calm. She stopped at the edge of the orchard, observing her cub from a safe distance. The cub squeaked softly, glancing toward its mother, then back at the goats. Harris realized that the mother bear was allowing this interaction to continue, silently guiding her cub without intervening. The cub pawed at the hay again, squeaking with delight, and the mother remained stationary, vigilant but non-threatening. Harris felt a mixture of awe and relief. The cub was safe, the goats were safe, and the mother was nearby, watching without aggression. The farmyard had become a place of learning, of trust, and of unusual friendship. But just as he began to relax, a sudden movement near the barn caught his eye. A young dog, curious and bold, had entered the yard, barking loudly at the cub. The cub jumped, squeaking in surprise, and the kid goat bolted. Harris's stomach sank. The fragile balance was about to be tested again. He ran toward the fence, shouting, "No! Stay back!" The cub froze, the goats scattered, and the dog barked again, tail wagging, unaware of the tension it had caused. Harris knew he had only seconds to prevent a potential disaster. The cub's playful innocence could not withstand sudden chaos, and the goats could panic violently. He took a deep breath, focusing on calm, deliberate movements, hoping to guide the animals safely through this new challenge. The cub and kid goat are forming a fragile friendship, but a curious dog enters the yard. If you were the farmer, how would you prevent chaos while keeping both the cub and goats safe? The sudden barking tore through the calm of the farmyard. The cub froze mid-step, ears flattened, tail flicking nervously. The kid goat squealed and bolted, hooves skidding across the dirt, while the doe tensed, muscles coiled for flight. Harris's heart pounded. The delicate peace he had cultivated was at risk of collapsing in an instant. The dog, a young farm mutt named Toby, bounded forward, barking furiously at the small brown intruder. Its paws pounded the dirt, tail wagging, eyes bright with excitement. Toby had no intention of harming the cub, only to assert himself, to protect his territory. But from the cub's perspective, it was a sudden threat. Harris ran toward the fence, hands outstretched, shouting, "Toby! Stop! Back!" His voice was firm but calm. The dog hesitated, barking one last time, then stopped short at Harris's raised hand. The cub, sensing a momentary reprieve, crouched low, sniffing the air, trying to decide what to do next. The kid goat huddled near the barn wall, trembling slightly but no longer panicked. The doe remained watchful but stationary. Harris knew he had to act quickly to prevent any further escalation. He grabbed a small stick from the ground, not to threaten, but to gently guide the cub's movements. Slowly, he waved it toward a patch of safe grass near the barn. "Come on, over here," he murmured. The cub tilted its head, ears twitching, then hopped cautiously toward the designated area. Its movements were slow, deliberate, but still playful. Harris exhaled quietly, relieved. The cub was responding to his guidance, and the goats were beginning to regain their composure. Toby, still barking softly, circled the cub, tail wagging. Harris stepped between them, hands raised, voice calm. "Easy, easy, no one gets hurt." The dog paused, sniffed the air, and then backed off slightly, ears lowered in submission. Harris took a deep breath. This was a small victory, the first sign that the yard could remain peaceful even with the dog's unexpected appearance. He knew, however, that the cub's attention span was short. Another distraction could send it into a panic. The cub pawed at a pile of hay near the barn, squeaking softly, then looked up at Harris, eyes bright and curious. The kid goat edged closer, sniffing the cub's paw, tentative but intrigued. The doe relaxed slightly, tail lowering, ears swiveling toward the cub. From the orchard, the mother bear remained still, watching her cub with calm vigilance. Her presence was reassuring, yet Harris knew that any sudden movement could trigger her protective instincts. He stayed alert, ready to intervene if necessary. The cub, seemingly emboldened by the absence of immediate threats, began a playful dance around the hay pile. It pawed at the dirt, rolled onto its back, and squeaked in delight. The kid goat mirrored the behavior cautiously, hopping and pawing at the hay, creating a strange but harmonious rhythm in the yard. Harris felt a smile spread across his face. Despite the earlier chaos, a fragile bond was forming. The cub and the goats were learning to coexist, guided by instinct, curiosity, and careful human intervention. Suddenly, a loud clang from the barn startled everyone. The cub leaped backward, squeaking in alarm. The goats scattered again, but Harris held his ground, hands raised, voice calm. "It's okay, stay calm." The cub froze mid-roll, ears twitching, tail flicking. Harris stepped closer, slowly, making sure not to appear threatening. "Good, easy, just curious, that's all," he murmured. The cub pawed at the ground, then at a small wooden crate near the barn, squeaking softly as if inviting the kid goat to join. The goat stepped forward cautiously, sniffing the cub's paw. Harris exhaled in relief. The interaction was tentative but positive. From the orchard, the mother bear shifted slightly, moving a few steps closer, eyes never leaving her cub. Harris could feel the tension in the air, a mixture of curiosity, playfulness, and caution. This delicate balance required constant attention. Toby, the dog, barked softly again, tail wagging. Harris crouched near him, voice calm but firm. "Easy, it's okay. No one's in danger." The dog paused, then sat down obediently, eyes fixed on the cub. The cub hopped onto the crate, squeaking in delight, then jumped down and pawed at the kid goat again. The goat stepped closer, sniffing the cub's nose. Harris watched, heart swelling with awe. The yard, once a scene of chaos, had transformed into a space of learning, trust, and tentative friendship. But Harris knew this balance was fragile. Another sudden noise, another misstep, could unravel everything. He needed to remain vigilant, guiding the cub's playful curiosity while protecting the goats and maintaining his own safety. From the orchard, the mother bear shifted her weight, muscles coiled, eyes fixed on her cub. Harris could sense the protective instinct simmering just beneath the surface. Any sudden threat to the cub could provoke an unexpected reaction. The cub, sensing the presence of its mother, squeaked softly and circled the kid goat once more, nudging it gently. The goat, now more confident, responded cautiously, pawing at the cub's side. Harris exhaled slowly, realizing that the first signs of mutual understanding had appeared. Then, a sudden movement near the barn startled the cub. Harris's pulse quickened. The dog barked again, the goats tensed, and the cub froze, ears flat, eyes wide. This moment would test everything Harris had done so far: patience, observation, and careful guidance. He stepped closer, voice calm and steady. "Easy, easy, everyone just stay calm." The cub blinked, sniffed the air, then cautiously moved toward the hay pile again, tail wagging slightly. The goats relaxed, and Toby sat obediently, eyes fixed on the cub. Harris allowed himself a quiet sigh of relief. The cub had survived its first major interruption, the goats had remained unharmed, and the dog had learned to respect boundaries. For now, the farmyard had returned to a delicate peace, a fragile coexistence between wild curiosity and domestic caution. But Harris knew it was only a matter of time before the next challenge arose, and he would need to be ready. The cub survived the dog's sudden arrival, but the yard remains fragile. What would you do to ensure both the cub and goats stay safe while allowing the cub to explore? The morning warmth settled over the farmyard, dust sparkling in the sunlight as the cub explored the safe patch of grass near the barn. Its playful energy seemed boundless, yet Harris noticed a subtle change. The cub was learning to gauge the reactions of the goats and the dog. Each paw step was careful, each squeak a question in the language of curiosity. The kid goat followed cautiously, mimicking the cub's movements, ears twitching as it stepped over stray hay. The doe, still watchful, lowered her tail and began to graze a few feet away, signaling that the immediate danger had passed. Harris crouched nearby, hands resting on the wooden fence, quietly guiding with gestures and soft murmurs. The cub discovered a low wooden beam lying across the yard. It pawed and pushed at it, squeaking in delight, rolling it slightly. The kid goat hesitated, then nudged the beam, fascinated. Harris exhaled. The first real signs of cooperation between species were appearing. From the orchard, the mother bear watched intently, massive eyes scanning every move. She remained at a distance but shifted slightly closer, ensuring her cub stayed within a safe perimeter. Harris felt a wave of relief. The mother's presence was reassuring, yet she was patient, allowing her cub to explore independently. A sudden breeze carried the scent of wildflowers, and the cub twitched its nose, ears flicking. It pawed at a patch of clover near the fence, squeaking softly as if announcing its discovery. The kid goat followed, sniffing curiously. The scene was peaceful, almost idyllic. Two young animals learning from each other under the watchful eyes of their elders and a vigilant human. Harris smiled, noting the cub's cautious approach toward the other goats. It circled the herd slowly, sniffing and pawing lightly, testing boundaries without provoking fear. The goats, in turn, adjusted their positions, forming a protective circle while maintaining enough space for playful interaction. Toby, the dog, lay down a short distance away, tail wagging, watching the interaction with curiosity rather than aggression. Harris patted his leg, whispering, "Good boy, calm." The dog's obedience and calm demeanor added another layer of stability to the yard. The cub discovered a small pile of straw near the barn and immediately began to roll in it, squeaking joyfully. The kid goat, hesitant at first, eventually stepped closer and nudged the cub gently. Harris chuckled quietly, amazed at how natural the interaction looked. But as the morning wore on, Harris noticed subtle signs of fatigue in the cub. Its playful hops slowed, and it paused more frequently to sniff the air or observe the goats. He knew it would need a rest soon, but moving the cub could provoke panic. He needed to encourage the cub to self-regulate. He crouched low, calling softly, "Take it easy, explore slowly." The cub responded, moving deliberately now, pawing gently at the grass rather than bouncing wildly. The kid goat mirrored the behavior, a small display of trust forming between the two. Suddenly, a rustle in the orchard caught the cub's attention. Its ears flattened, and it squeaked softly, turning toward the movement. Harris tensed. Could it be another cub? Or was the mother stepping closer to intervene? The rustle resolved into the gentle movement of leaves in the breeze, and the cub relaxed. Harris exhaled slowly. Each day, each moment, each interaction taught both human and animals patience and observation. The cub approached the fence where Harris was crouched and squeaked, rubbing its small paws against the wooden rails. Harris extended a hand, letting the cub sniff and explore cautiously. The cub squeaked softly again, then hopped back to the kid goat, pawing gently at a clover patch. The doe watched closely, her eyes calm now. Other goats shifted slightly, creating a loose circle around the cub and kid goat, forming a microcosm of safety and trust. Harris observed, noting how even minor interactions, a nudge here, a squeak there, built understanding between species. A sudden noise from the barn startled the cub again. Its ears flattened, tail flicking nervously, but Harris raised a hand calmly. "It's okay, stay calm." The cub paused, sniffed the air, then returned to the clover patch. The kid goat followed, cautiously nudging the cub with its nose. Harris realized that the cub's ability to self-calm, to learn from its surroundings and interactions, was growing rapidly. Its instincts were tempered by observation and subtle guidance, both from its mother and from the human presence. The mother bear shifted slightly in the orchard, ensuring she remained visible but not threatening. Harris felt the delicate balance in the yard, wild and domestic animals coexisting under patient observation, was becoming more stable. The cub discovered a small puddle left by overnight dew and squeaked in delight, splashing lightly with its paws. The kid goat approached, hesitant but intrigued, pawing at the water carefully. Harris smiled, feeling the beauty of interspecies curiosity unfolding naturally. Toby, the dog, watched the interaction with relaxed eyes, occasionally letting out a soft bark as if asking permission to join. Harris shook his head slightly, keeping Toby at a safe distance. The cub and goats needed this moment of connection, uninterrupted by outside interference. As the sun climbed higher, Harris noticed the cub's playful energy waning. Its hops became slower, squeaks softer. He knew it was time for the cub to rest, yet moving it could provoke panic. He decided to guide the cub toward a shaded patch beneath a tree using soft gestures and low murmurs. The cub followed cautiously, sniffing at the ground, then settled into the shade, paws tucked under. The kid goat remained nearby, grazing softly, creating a small scene of tranquility. Harris exhaled, relief washing over him. For a fleeting moment, the farmyard was calm, peaceful, and harmonious, a rare glimpse into a world where curiosity, patience, and gentle guidance created bonds across species. But Harris knew the morning was far from over. Cubs were unpredictable, goats were cautious, and the mother bear's watchful eyes meant any misstep could trigger instinctual reactions. The balance in the yard was delicate, requiring constant observation, subtle guidance, and unwavering attention. From the orchard, the mother bear's silhouette remained steady, massive, and calm, eyes never leaving her cub. Harris felt gratitude and awe for the cub's curiosity, the goat's patience, and the quiet cooperation that made this unusual morning possible. Just as he allowed himself a brief moment of rest, a faint sound from the road caught his attention, the possibility of more human visitors. Harris's chest tightened. This fragile harmony could be disrupted at any second. The cub is beginning to rest, but a sound from the road suggests more visitors may arrive. How would you maintain this fragile harmony between cub and goats if strangers suddenly appear? The cub rested under the shade of the tree, paws tucked beneath its small body, eyes half closed in the warm morning sun. Its little chest rose and fell steadily, and for a moment, the farmyard seemed perfectly calm. The kid goat grazed nearby, tail flicking lazily, and the doe chewed slowly on fresh grass, relaxed for the first time all morning. Even Toby, the dog, had settled into a comfortable sit, watching the yard like a silent guardian. Harris allowed himself a small sigh of relief. The delicate balance of trust and curiosity had held, for now. But the faint crunch of gravel from the road reminded him that peace in the farmyard was always fragile. He squinted toward the road, catching movement, a group of local children, drawn by curiosity and the faint sounds of morning life, were approaching the yard. Harris's heart rate spiked. Human visitors were unpredictable, loud, and often oblivious to wildlife etiquette. He ran toward the fence, arms outstretched. "Children, stay back. Please don't get too close." The children froze, pointing excitedly. "A bear? Look at the cub," one shouted, voice filled with awe and delight. The cub's ears twitched. It lifted its head, sniffing the air, then sank lower to the ground, tail flicking nervously. The kid goat bolted a short distance, bleating softly in alarm. Harris held his hands up, calm but firm. "It's okay. Everyone stay calm and stay behind the fence." The mother bear, still at the orchard's edge, shifted slightly. Her massive form was tense, muscles coiled, eyes trained on both the cub and the approaching humans. Harris knew that any sudden movement, any loud noise, could trigger a defensive reaction. He crouched low, speaking softly to the cub. "Easy, easy, it's okay. Just stay calm." The cub's tiny paws dug into the dirt as it hesitated, sniffing the air. Its squeaks were soft, almost questioning, and Harris understood it was sensing the threat, unsure of how to respond. Harris gestured to a shaded patch of grass closer to the barn. Slowly, he encouraged the cub to move. The cub obeyed cautiously, moving paw by paw, eyes flicking between the children and Harris. The kid goat, reassured by the cub's calm, returned to graze nearby. Harris could feel the tension in the yard. The children were still frozen in awe, whispering excitedly, unaware that even small noises could provoke panic. He waved his hands again. "Quiet voices. Don't make sudden movements." The cub reached the shaded patch, crouching low, tail tucked slightly. Its ears twitched as it scanned the yard. Harris exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. The cub was safe, for now. The mother bear remained still, observing, a silent sentinel. Harris marveled at her patience. She had allowed her cub to explore, learn, and interact with the domestic animals without rushing in. Her watchful presence was a reminder of the wild instincts that governed every move. Harris turned back to the children. "Remember, bears are wild animals. We're lucky to see this. Watch quietly, from a distance. No sudden movements." The children nodded eagerly, whispering, excitement evident in their wide eyes. The cub, encouraged by Harris's calm demeanor, began to explore the patch of grass again. It pawed at a small pile of straw, squeaking softly, and nudged the kid goat. The goat, now more confident, pawed back gently. Harris smiled, observing the subtle dance of curiosity and trust between the two animals. But the sudden clatter of a metal bucket from the barn startled the cub. Its tiny body tensed, ears flat, squeaks sharp and quick. The kid goat bolted once more, bleating. Harris quickly stepped forward, hands outstretched. "Easy, easy, it's okay." The cub froze, sniffing the air. Harris guided it gently toward a safer area near the fence. The goat hesitated but then returned to the patch of grass, reassured by the cub's calm. From the orchard, the mother bear shifted slightly, massive head tilting, eyes focused. Harris felt the tension tighten in his chest. One wrong move, one loud noise, and instinct could override training or observation. He crouched low again, speaking softly. "Good, you're doing well, easy." The cub squeaked softly, tail flicking as it pawed at a small rock near the fence. The goat followed cautiously, mirroring the movement. The children remained quiet now, watching with rapt attention. Harris noticed one child's foot tapping against the gravel, a subtle but potentially disruptive motion. He gestured gently, still, quiet. The child froze, understanding the gravity of the moment. The cub, sensing calm from Harris, returned to playful exploration. It nudged the straw pile again, squeaked softly at the goat, and circled the shaded patch. Harris exhaled slowly, feeling a small sense of victory. Despite distractions and potential danger, the cub was learning boundaries, trust, and the balance between curiosity and caution. The mother bear remained at the orchard edge, massive and still, eyes never leaving her cub. Harris marveled at her restraint. The cub's confidence had grown, yet the mother's presence kept a layer of natural caution intact. But Harris knew the morning wasn't over. Human curiosity, cub curiosity, and the unpredictability of farm animals created a complex web of potential chaos. Maintaining peace required constant observation, subtle guidance, and quick reflexes. Suddenly, a bird took flight from the orchard, a flurry of wings and noise. The cub froze mid-step, squeaked, and glanced at Harris. The kid goat pricked its ears, muscles tensing. Harris raised his hands calmly. "Easy, it's okay." The cub slowly resumed pawing at the grass, squeaking softly, tail flicking, curiosity returning. The kid goat mirrored the behavior, cautious but trusting. Harris allowed himself a brief moment of relief. The farmyard had survived yet another interruption. Curiosity, caution, and gentle guidance had maintained a fragile harmony. But as the cub pawed at the grass near the fence, a small shadow loomed across the yard, the mother bear shifting slightly, massive and watchful. Harris felt a chill. Even in the calmest moments, instinct could override patience in a heartbeat. The cub is calm for now, but visitors and small distractions are everywhere. How would you maintain safety and trust if a sudden noise or movement startled the cub again? The sun had climbed high over the farmyard, casting warm light across the dirt and hay. The cub, now more confident after several hours of cautious exploration, hopped over a small patch of grass near the barn. Its squeaks were soft, playful, yet alert, ears twitching with every movement and sound. The kid goat mirrored the cub's actions, stepping lightly and pawing at small patches of hay. The doe watched from a short distance, tail flicking slowly, muscles relaxed but ready to react if needed. Harris crouched near the fence, eyes scanning every detail. Toby, the dog, sat quietly, observing the scene. The cub's growing confidence was remarkable, but Harris knew that young animals, especially wild ones, could push boundaries unpredictably. Any sudden noise or movement could spark panic. A gentle breeze rustled the orchard leaves, carrying the scent of wildflowers and distant grass. The cub froze mid-step, sniffing the air. Harris followed its gaze and saw the mother bear at the orchard edge, massive, still, and watchful. Her presence was a calm reassurance but also a silent reminder of instinctual limits. Harris whispered softly to the cub, "Easy, just explore slowly, stay close." The cub squeaked in response, pawing at a small clump of grass near the barn. The kid goat nudged it cautiously, and for a moment the yard was calm and harmonious. Suddenly, a faint rustling came from the nearby field, followed by the sharp cry of a distant bird. The cub froze, tail flicking nervously. Its ears flattened, eyes wide, and for a brief moment, Harris feared a repeat of the earlier chaos. He held up his hands, voice calm and soothing. "It's okay, just stay calm, nothing's coming close." The cub hesitated, then slowly resumed exploration, moving toward a shaded area beneath a small tree. The kid goat followed cautiously, sniffing the cub's paws. From the orchard, the mother bear shifted slightly, massive head turning to track the cub's movements. Harris marveled at the subtle communication between mother and cub, silent, instinctual, protective yet allowing independence. The cub discovered a small wooden crate lying on its side near the barn. Pawing at it curiously, squeaking in delight, it nudged it toward the kid goat. The goat stepped back initially, uncertain, then gently pushed the crate with its nose, mirroring the cub's playful movements. Harris allowed himself a quiet smile. For several minutes, the cub and kid goat engaged in this gentle game, moving the crate, pawing at straw, and squeaking softly. Harris observed, heart swelling with a mix of relief and awe. The animals were learning trust and boundaries from each other, a delicate, precious harmony. But then, a shadow passed overhead. A hawk, large and imposing, swooped across the sky, its shadow racing over the yard. The cub jumped, squeaking sharply, tail flicking. The kid goat bolted a few steps before halting, muscles tense. Harris froze, watching carefully. The cub crouched low, sniffing the air, unsure whether the shadow was a threat. Harris whispered gently, "It's okay, nothing's coming close, easy." Slowly, the cub rose, moving cautiously toward the straw pile near the barn. The kid goat, reassured, stepped closer. The mother bear remained motionless, yet her presence radiated authority. Harris realized that the cub's confidence was growing precisely because of this balance. The mother's watchful protection allowed the cub to explore safely, while Harris's calm guidance reinforced trust. Harris crouched low, watching as the cub pawed at the straw and nudged the kid goat. Dust floated in the sunlight, the yard peaceful once more. Toby the dog sat nearby, tail wagging softly, watching the interaction without interference. Then, a sudden clatter came from the barn, a bucket tipped over, rolling across the dirt. The cub froze, squeaking, ears flattened. The kid goat bolted, tail flicking nervously. Harris stepped forward quickly, hands outstretched. "Easy, stay calm, it's okay." The cub paused, sniffed the air, then slowly moved toward the shaded patch again, squeaking softly. The kid goat returned cautiously, pawing at the cub's side. Harris exhaled slowly. Once again, patience and calm had prevented panic. He glanced toward the orchard. The mother bear shifted slightly, massive eyes following the cub. Harris marveled at the subtle lessons being taught: observation, trust, and the careful navigation of boundaries. The cub, encouraged by the calm presence of both human and mother, began a new game. It pawed at a pile of hay, squeaking joyfully, and nudged the kid goat. The goat responded, mimicking the cub's playful movements. Harris watched, heart swelling. For the first time, the farmyard seemed truly at peace, a rare moment of interspecies harmony. But Harris knew the day was not yet over. Cubs were curious, goats could panic, and the farmyard was full of unpredictable elements. Maintaining this fragile balance required vigilance, patience, and constant observation. From the orchard, the mother bear remained still, massive and calm. Harris realized the cub's confidence was growing not because of absence of threat, but because it was learning to navigate a world filled with potential challenges. Then, a faint sound from the road reached Harris's ears, footsteps approaching again. The children who had been watching earlier were returning, laughter and chatter audible. The cub's ears twitched. Its small body tensed slightly. Harris's pulse quickened. He gestured to the cub, guiding it to stay close to the shaded area. The kid goat stepped closer, sensing the cub's caution. Harris whispered to the approaching children, quiet voices. "Stay calm, watch from a distance." The cub sniffed the air, tail flicking nervously, but remained near the shaded patch. Harris exhaled slowly. The cub had survived several interruptions today, learning boundaries, trust, and patience. The goats were more confident, the dog obedient, and the mother bear's presence added a layer of calm authority. But he knew that each new distraction, a sound, a shadow, or an unexpected visitor, could test this fragile harmony. Every interaction, every pause, every squeak and nudge was a lesson in observation and trust. Harris glanced at the cub, now pawing at the grass, squeaking softly, and nudging the kid goat. Toby sat obediently nearby, watching. The mother bear remained at the orchard edge, massive and silent. For now, the farmyard was calm, peaceful, and harmonious. Yet the day's lessons were far from over. Harris knew that maintaining this delicate balance required constant vigilance, patience, and a deep understanding of both wild and domestic instincts. The cub is growing bolder, testing boundaries with the goats, but the road brings new distractions. How would you ensure the cub's safety while maintaining trust and calm in the yard? The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the farmyard, highlighting the peaceful interaction between the cub and the goats. The cub, now more confident than ever, hopped lightly near a pile of hay, squeaking softly in delight. The kid goat mirrored each movement cautiously, nudging the cub gently as if inviting it to continue the playful dance. Harris crouched near the fence, keeping his eyes on every detail. Toby the dog lay nearby, ears perked but body relaxed. The doe grazed calmly, tail flicking lazily, muscles relaxed but ready to respond if necessary. For a moment, it seemed that the farmyard had achieved a rare and perfect balance. But Harris knew that balance was fragile. Cubs were naturally curious, and curiosity could lead to unexpected danger. The mother bear remained at the orchard edge, massive and watchful, her eyes following every movement of her cub. Her presence was both reassuring and a reminder of the wild instincts lurking beneath the playful surface. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew across the yard, rustling the leaves of the orchard and sending a small branch clattering across the ground. The cub froze mid-step, ears flattening and tail flicking nervously. The kid goat bolted a few steps before halting, muscles tensing. Harris's heart raced. He raised a hand calmly and whispered, "It's okay, stay calm, nothing's coming close." The cub sniffed the air, tail still flicking, then cautiously resumed pawing at the hay pile. The kid goat, reassured by the cub's calm, returned to play nearby. The mother bear shifted slightly, massive head tilting, eyes fixed on her cub. Harris marveled at the subtle communication, a silent dialogue of instinct, trust, and observation. The cub was learning to gauge its environment, understanding that not every noise or movement posed a threat. Harris watched as the cub discovered a small wooden crate lying near the barn. It pawed and rolled it carefully, squeaking softly. The kid goat, encouraged by the cub's calm, nudged the crate gently. Harris allowed a quiet smile to spread across his face. These moments of interspecies cooperation were rare, delicate, and incredibly rewarding. Then, from the far edge of the farmyard, a sudden movement caught the cub's attention. A stray cat had wandered near the fence, curious but cautious. The cub froze, ears twitching, tail flicking. The kid goat tensed, stepping closer to the cub for reassurance. Harris's pulse quickened. He stepped forward slowly, hands raised, voice calm. "It's okay, stay calm, nothing to worry about." The cub sniffed the air, pawed cautiously toward the shaded patch of grass, and settled down. The cat, sensing no threat, retreated quietly. Harris exhaled slowly. The cub had survived its first real challenge of the afternoon, the unexpected arrival of another animal. The kid goat relaxed, and the doe continued grazing. Toby sat quietly, observing. The farmyard returned to a calm, peaceful state. The mother bear remained at the orchard edge, massive and silent, yet her presence radiated authority. Harris realized that the cub's confidence was growing not because there were no threats, but because it was learning to navigate a world filled with potential challenges. As the afternoon wore on, Harris noticed the cub's energy beginning to wane. Its hops became slower, squeaks softer. He knew it would soon need a rest. The kid goat, sensing the cub's fatigue, remained close, grazing calmly. Harris guided the cub toward the shaded patch near the barn using soft gestures and murmured encouragement. The cub followed cautiously, sniffing the air, tail flicking lightly. The mother bear shifted slightly, massive eyes watching her cub's every movement. Once under the shade, the cub settled, paws tucked beneath its body. The kid goat stayed nearby, watching with curiosity but respecting the cub's space. Harris crouched low, observing the delicate scene. The yard had become a microcosm of trust, patience, and careful guidance. But even in this calm moment, Harris knew that the final test was near. A distant rumble of farm machinery approached, the sound of a tractor in the field. The cub's ears twitched, tail flicking, body tense. The kid goat froze as well. Harris raised his hands slowly, voice calm but firm. "Easy, easy, it's okay, nothing's coming close." The cub sniffed the air, then cautiously resumed pawing at the dirt near the shaded patch. The kid goat, reassured, stepped closer once more. The mother bear remained still, massive and alert, watching. Harris marveled at the balance, instinct, trust, and careful observation coexisting in perfect harmony. The cub had faced multiple disruptions today: humans, dogs, birds, wind, and even a stray cat. Each time, it had learned, adapted, and maintained calm under careful guidance. The tractor approached closer, rumbling steadily. Harris positioned himself near the fence, hands outstretched, voice calm. "It's okay, stay calm, nothing's going to happen." The cub's ears flicked, tail twitched, but it remained near the shaded patch. The kid goat grazed cautiously, still observing the cub. Harris exhaled slowly. The farmyard had survived the final test of the day. Curiosity, patience, and trust had guided every interaction. The cub had learned boundaries, the goats had adapted to the cub's presence, and the mother bear's silent authority had maintained a layer of protection. As the tractor passed, the cub relaxed further, tail lowering slightly. The kid goat nuzzled it gently, a subtle sign of growing friendship. Harris smiled, feeling a profound sense of awe. This fragile harmony, built on observation, trust, and careful guidance, had held against multiple challenges. The mother bear shifted once more, then retreated slightly toward the orchard, massive silhouette calm and controlled. Harris allowed himself a quiet sigh of relief. The cub was safe, confident, and had navigated a day filled with tests, distractions, and surprises. The yard remained peaceful. The sun shone warmly, dust floating in the light. Toby the dog sat obediently, watching. The cub pawed at the grass softly, squeaking occasionally. The kid goat grazed nearby, tail flicking lazily. Harris knew that this was a moment to reflect on patience, on trust, and on the delicate balance between wild instincts and careful human guidance. The cub had passed its final test for the day, learning lessons that would shape its understanding of the world. The cub has navigated multiple challenges today: humans, dogs, birds, and machinery. How do you think trust and calm can be maintained as the day comes to a close? The late afternoon sun cast golden light across the farmyard, bathing the cub and goats in a soft, warm glow. The cub, now tired from a day full of exploration and learning, rested comfortably under the shade of the barn's overhang. Its small chest rose and fell steadily, eyes half closed, ears flicking occasionally at distant sounds. The kid goat grazed nearby, tail flicking lazily, content to stay close to its unusual companion. Harris crouched near the fence, a sense of quiet satisfaction washing over him. Today had been a day of lessons, for the cub, the goats, and even for him. Each moment had tested patience, observation, and trust. The cub had faced distractions, potential threats, and new experiences, yet it had adapted calmly under gentle guidance. The mother bear remained at the edge of the orchard, massive and still, eyes never leaving her cub. Her presence was reassuring, a reminder of instinctual protection and silent authority. Yet she had allowed her cub independence, fostering curiosity, confidence, and gentle exploration. Harris marveled at the delicate balance of wild instinct and learned behavior on display. Toby the dog lay nearby, tail twitching softly, observing the cub and goats without interference. The farmyard was peaceful now, almost serene. Dust and hay floated in the late afternoon light, golden and soft, emphasizing the calm that had been earned through patience and understanding. The cub pawed gently at the straw pile near the barn, squeaking softly in contentment. The kid goat nudged it gently, a subtle gesture of friendship and trust. Harris smiled, witnessing this quiet moment of interspecies connection, an unexpected bond forged through patience, observation, and gentle guidance. Harris took a deep breath, reflecting on the day. Each distraction, from human visitors to stray animals and even the rumble of machinery, had been an opportunity. The cub had learned boundaries, the goats had adapted to its presence, and the yard had remained calm because of careful attention, clear communication, and respect for instinct. From the orchard, the mother bear slowly moved closer, massive form relaxed, yet still watchful. She approached the cub cautiously, sniffing the air before settling near the shaded patch. The cub squeaked softly in recognition, leaning slightly toward its mother. The bond between them was evident, deep, and unspoken, a mix of instinctual trust and familial comfort. The kid goat remained nearby, grazing peacefully, observing the cub and mother bear with quiet curiosity. The doe, tail flicking gently, had settled into the background, adding to the atmosphere of calm and safety. Toby remained at Harris's side, eyes alert but body relaxed, a quiet observer of the day's lessons in harmony. Harris allowed himself a small smile. The farmyard had survived its trials, humans, animals, and the unpredictability of nature itself, and had emerged as a scene of calm, trust, and playful curiosity. The cub's journey had been one of learning how to explore safely, how to respond to distractions, and how to coexist peacefully with animals of another species. He watched as the cub rolled gently in the straw, squeaking softly, tail flicking lazily. The kid goat nudged it, then returned to grazing. The mother bear observed quietly, massive eyes scanning the yard but showing no signs of alarm. The cub had learned that exploration did not always mean danger, and that trust, patience, and gentle guidance could create safety even in unfamiliar situations. Harris reflected on the lessons of the day. The delicate balance of the farmyard between wild instincts and gentle guidance, curiosity and caution, playfulness and respect, had created a space where trust could grow. The cub, the goats, and even the dog had all contributed to this harmony. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, the yard was bathed in soft golden light, shadows lengthening, and the air carrying the gentle scent of hay and wildflowers. The cub yawned, rolling onto its side, while the mother bear settled beside it protectively. The kid goat grazed calmly nearby, the doe moving slightly to a comfortable distance. Toby lay at Harris's feet, tail thumping gently. Harris leaned against the fence, voice calm and reflective. Today, we witnessed something rare: patience, trust, and gentle guidance creating a peaceful bond. The cub learned boundaries, the goats adapted, and the mother bear's presence ensured safety. All of this reminds us, nature has lessons if we're willing to observe and respect it. The cub squeaked softly, tail flicking, then leaned against its mother. The kid goat grazed nearby, and the doe flicked its tail lazily. Toby sat quietly, observing. The farmyard was alive with a calm, peaceful energy, a rare harmony that had been earned through careful attention, observation, and gentle interaction. Harris allowed himself one final deep breath. The day had tested patience, judgment, and understanding, yet it had ended in a scene of trust and calm. The cub had faced distractions, learned from its environment, and discovered how to play and explore safely. The goats had adapted, the dog had observed, and the mother bear had guided with quiet authority. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of gold and orange. The cub nuzzled its mother, squeaking softly in contentment. The kid goat grazed calmly, occasionally looking toward the cub. Harris smiled, knowing that this day would remain in memory, a story of patience, trust, and unexpected friendship. Today, we witnessed a remarkable story of trust, patience, and interspecies friendship. The cub learned, the goats adapted, and harmony was created through observation and respect. Nature teaches us that gentle guidance and understanding can forge bonds we never expected. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life tales of animals and humans forming extraordinary connections.